The Power of Now has been a very influential book for me personally. And when I first read it, it was really an eye opener, and it was really a shock for me to realize how um, gripped I was by the ego, and um, how much let's say the real self had lost control and the false self had taken over. And when the false self wins, you are you feel disconnected, and you feel disconnected from the present moment, and you feel disconnected from others, and you feel disconnected from life. And it really is draining, you, physically and mentally, psychologically. It's draining when you're overanalyzing the environment, everything around you, people around you, and it's also unnecessary. The over rationalization and over analyzation of the external events and uh, the external objects is really not very fruitful. And I think that getting over that, and getting over my fears about life, and my fears about the future, and my regrets about the past, and being able to be very present, and being able to be very calm and cool and collected, especially in challenging circumstances, um, has been really helpful. And I think that, yeah, The Power of Now as a book, and Eckhart Tolle as a character, has been uh, very instrumental for my transformation. But I wanted to just putting that aside, I want to also talk about the some of the stuff that I disagree with. In terms of the book The Power of Now, and the book after that, The New Earth, and generally speaking, Eckhart Tolle's stuff and his videos that I've seen on YouTube and everything else, um, I would say that one of the first things that I would disagree with is his. He hasn't actually mentioned it specifically, but I would disagree with his approach to solving problems. I think that there is a necessary amount of resistance. There's an amount of resistance that's necessary to solving, external problems. So, if, for example, you don't have a job, or if you're underemployed, there is external things that you can do to help you uh, find a job. For example, there is external things. There's things that you can be proactive about, where you can engage with the external world to be able to find a job or find some kind of employment. And it's the same for it's the same for relationships. If you want a girlfriend, there's certain things that you're gonna have to do in order to get a girlfriend. And I feel that my main issue with Eckhart Tolle in this regard is that he's not proactive about life itself. I think he doesn't he doesn't believe that the ego has any use in that sense, and it doesn't have any use probably at all in his opinion. I think from what I've gathered and from what I've understood, and I think that has been the challenge for me in understanding Eckhart Tolle's work. Um, One other thing that I don't like is his use of the word ego. I mean, he says that everybody has, their own interpretation of ego, but he says that his ego is, identification with form, or in more specifically, he also does mention that it's complete identification with form. And I don't see that there is a very big problem with being identified with who that being identified with something that's external. So if you are if you're a great swimmer and you're identified with that, then that becomes a part of your personality. It becomes, if you are healthy and you work out a lot, that you've identified with someone that works out a lot, who's healthy, who takes care of himself, and you begin to naturally be motivated every day to go to the gym and to eat healthily, and you won't stray from it. And most of the people who are successful in life are actually very identified and very strongly very strongly connected to their. Uh, they feel that they have to. How can I say? Um, Emphasize their identity. Uh, Even towards others and to themselves, they need to kind of confirm it to themselves. And I think that in this regard, he downplays the role of, individual self-esteem and um, in the individual identity. Um, when I spent some time in Japan in a Zen temple, I saw that the monks there, they were very strongly connected to the idea that they were monks. They took themselves seriously as monks, and they took themselves very they were very strict and harsh on themselves if they made a mistake, and even their teachers were very harsh on them. So um, the when we were meditating, for example, the teachers would make sure that they didn't go to sleep, and or that they didn't slouch when they were meditating. They made sure that the people who were full-time monks were treated with the utmost discipline. So I think that uh, the lack of having a strong identity can make you sometimes weak, and it can sometimes make you passive, and it can sometimes make you lose yourself in the world so that you don't know who you really are. And I think that can be what I've from what I have experienced, and from what I know of, Eckhart Tolle's work, it has been not the most useful. Certainly not the most useful, and it has been a little bit harmful for me personally, because I felt like I just lost myself. So that's one thing. Also, another thing is that Eckhart Tolle, I think, overemphasizes the present moment. When you hear him speak, he's always very present, and he's always very calm and collected, and it's very beautiful to hear. And he always says very profound things. I mean, most of the time. But I don't think that's really achievable for most people, because they don't live the lifestyle that he lives. If you have to go up and go to work every morning, then you can't sustain that kind of um, sense of presence. So what I've realized is that if you live a kind of busy lifestyle or a hectic lifestyle, the present moment is just going to be a kind of luxury for you, where you experience it. When you're on the train, you just experience it lightly, or you take a deep breath, or you meditate for 15 minutes. But you can't allow that to become a part of your everyday, every moment to moment life, because if you do, you won't be able to function in the outside world. I mean, I think he also says that, it's possible to be present throughout your whole life, which I really don't agree with. I don't think it's possible, and I don't think it's achievable, and I don't think it's even effective. I don't think I necessarily need to be present and collected and conscious when I'm getting up and I'm making coffee and making a sandwich and having to go to school or go to work when I have to rush off. I think what I found that to be, it slows me down, it makes me ineffective, it makes me do things to a lesser quality, and it makes me frustrated, and it's just time consuming. So I think in that regard, it's not really very worthwhile pursuing presence to that extent. One other thing that's kind of harmful about the idea of presence is that it makes you lose sight of the end goal, and there always has to be a purpose to what you're doing. I mean, you have to have that end goal in sight, because that is very helpful. It lets you know where you're going, and it lets you know if you've steered off the path or if you haven't steered off the path. And I think that when you become really present and you become intensified, what happens is you lose yourself in the presence, and you lose your sense of identity, and you lose your sense of ambition and your sense of goals, and because you're so you're so overwhelmed by the power of the present moment that you become, it's kind of like you're induced into a drug-like state where you've just taken some kind of drug that just kind of freezes you. So I don't think that I mean, partly connected to this point. To this point, there's also something else that's connected, and I think he also downplays the idea of, for him, happiness, he says, is being in touch with the present moment and being fulfilled in the present moment. That is true happiness. But I don't think one other major issue that I have is that he doesn't emphasize enough the need for well, not the need, but in my opinion, in order to be happy, you also have to have external things sorted out in your life, the external aspects of your life in order. So, having good relationships, supportive people, not hanging out with other toxic people or people who will, drag you down, or people who you don't, agree with, or people who you dislike. And I think that he doesn't take into account that for a human being to be happy is not just about presence. It's also about actualization. It's also about fulfillment. It's also about having goals and dreams. It's also about getting in touch with their true nature and finding out more about themselves. And this also requires reading up about your childhood, and this also requires facing any abuse that you faced in the past, or any abuse that or anything that's harmful that you've done to others. And all of these things need a realization in order for you to become a kind of whole and a wholesome person and a happy person. And I think that also Eckhart Tolle doesn't pay much attention to, the amount of power that the past plays in people's lives, because he says if you're just present, then the past will dissolve. And I don't think it's as easy as that. I don't think presence is enough. I do think that you have to revisit the past. You have to journal. You have to write. You have to express your emotion. You might have to go to therapy. If that's an option for you, if you want to do it, you don't have to. But there has to be some level of reflection in order for you to reach a state of connectedness and reach a state of peace. And I don't think I don't think it's fully accessible, and I don't think it's achievable just through the present moment. I think there are other things that peace and happiness, that it's that they are tied to the present moment, but they don't just arise from the present moment. I think it's a kind of it's like a package. It's not just booking the tickets. It's like a whole package holiday where you have to have the hotel, you have to have the car, you have to sort everything out, you have to have the activities sorted out. So I just wanted to talk about that for a short while, just for a short video, and I want to hear your opinion on it. It's been on my mind for a while. I mean, I have I have a lot of respect for Eckhart Tolle, especially in the beginning, but I also felt that he went into an unfavorable direction, and I've lost a little bit of respect for him afterwards because he talks about he started hanging out with people like Oprah who just want to make money. She's just a businesswoman, you know, and he started hanging out with um, you know, who else? The Dalai Lama and all these people. And I don't know. I think like I don't really think that. Oh, and Deepak Chopra and all these people. And I really don't think that uh, uh, he should be doing that. I think that that Eckhart Tolle of the past before was much better, and I don't think that it was something favorable. And I really actually disliked that about him, and you know, and also what he does is he talks about certain people in his books. So he mentions people like Winston Churchill in his book, saying that you, you know he sees like Winston Churchill in a favorable light, and I think he sees like Obama in a favorable light as well. And I mean, these people, they're politicians. How can you see them in a favorable light? So I really didn't like that about him. And one other thing that I also just want to say is that when he says that like ultimately that you really don't want to suffer and you really want peace, but I don't really think that human beings only want that. I also think that human beings want challenges, and I also think that human beings want to experience difficulties within certain boundaries, and I think human beings also want to put limitations on themselves, and they also crave for certainty, and they also want rules and regulations in their lives because that's very fruitful and it's very it contributes to their well-being. And I think that he downplays the role of rules in life, because without rules you're really you you know uh, you get blown away very easily. I mean, you don't have your feet firmly on the ground when you don't have rules. So I think he also downplays that part a lot. So yeah, please comment on my channel and subscribe if you can. Have a good day. Bye bye.